Hi everyone, I'm GREYMOND. Today we're going to be answering questions about OCD recovery. These are the questions that you asked below my video, so let's get started. First question is, false memory OCD, how to deal with it, what if the thoughts are coming in, what happens when you are drinking and how it affects it. I'm kind of truncating a little bit just because the questions are fairly long, so not to bore you, but how do you deal with it? So anytime you understand that you have false memory OCD. This is your theme of false memory, whether it's hurting somebody, such as harm OCD, could be sexual OCD, could be it could be anything really. So this is my theme. What if question? Something happening in the past. That means it's false memory OCD. I'm not reacting. So you're seeing it for what it is, and you're keeping yourself in that mindset. You're not solving, you're not trying to figure it out. Now, when you refuse to do that, it's not going to feel good. You're going to feel like you need to figure it out, like you need to solve it. But the more you solve it, the worse you're actually going to feel. So you have to choose to refuse to do that. It's a choice. It's not a choice that feels good. It's a choice that's necessary to recover. And that goes for any type of OCD. You know, because that connection between fear and the thought, that's an actual physical connection in the brain. So another good analogy is to say that, you know, it's kind of like having a wound, right? You have a wound and you're picking at it, and the more you pick at it, the worse it gets, the more infected it gets, and the more it stings. So you have to stop picking at it for it to get better. But the second that you stop picking at it won't be the same second that it gets better, because on a physical level, your brain actually does need to heal, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So you have to prepare that when you disregard, the anxiety will still be there, and you will still feel very, very uncomfortable. And for the moment, it's okay. It's just how recovery goes. And in the beginning, you're actually going to get more thoughts because the brain is going to try to get you back into reacting, because that's what it used to. And it thinks that there's an actual real reason, because it's not wired for OCD. It thinks there's a real reason why you are worried. Right? Because anytime you are worried, you're sending a message to the brain that this is important, this is scary, so the brain tries to protect you by sending you more of the same thoughts. And that's the reason for OCD. If the brain could tell the difference between a real thought and an OCD thought, we wouldn't be in this problem, right? But because it can't tell the difference, you have to tell the difference. And for, you know, right now, you've been telling it the wrong thing for a long time, so you have to switch what you are saying to the brain, and after a while, not instantly, after a while, the brain will shift. So it takes a few months. I would say first few weeks are the worst, and then it gets better. So, you know, and what you will see is the brain is going to come up with a lot of different thoughts, just throwing thoughts over and over and over at you from maybe different themes or different details of the same thought or different thoughts, but really kind of just thoughts coming from everywhere, because it's trying to get you to react. So those first few weeks, you just have to be very careful of what you are allowing yourself to react to. If it has anything to do with your theme in this situation, anything to do with false memory, you're not doing that. You're not reacting, you're not paying attention, you're pushing through. So that's very important. With false memory, I find that drinking is always a trigger. You know, I mean, it's just not a good idea. You know, the analogy that I like to give is, if you think of the situation that the brain is already having a difficult time, it's already overstressed, it's already under pressure, don't take substances that mess up your brain more. You know, and because people associate drinking with losing control, a lot of the times false memory theme gets triggered. Well, I was drinking, maybe I forgot something, you know, and then the thought starts coming in, right? So that's an OCD thought. That's a typical OCD thought after a person who has false memory has been drinking, but you have to choose to step over it, step over the fear, and move on. And you will see things will start to improve. But for the future, I would say, you know, don't drink, because it's just not beneficial for your recovery. And at the same time, don't react. You know, if, however, you do find that not drinking has becoming a compulsion, where you are having, say, you know, I don't know, a sip any kind of alcohol, even, you know, a wine or something like that, and you think that that's it, I must have forgotten, you know, then that can become a problem as well. So you have to understand your balance and really do what you want to do in life and not what OCD is dictating you to do. So if OCD is saying, you know, you're going to get out of control if you drink, you absolutely cannot drink, you know, then avoiding having just, you know, like a glass of wine or a few sips of wine is also a compulsion. So you have to kind of find the balance depending on how you feel about it. But my advice would be not to. Next question is, my theme is religious OCD. So does that mean that anything that gives me anxiety in regards to that theme is OCD? I would say that whatever your theme is, so in this situation, religious OCD, and within that kind of context, you are having a lot of anxiety, a lot of analyzing, a lot of feeling like you're stuck, that there's an urgency to solve it. All of those kind of parameters show you that this thought is an OCD thought. But across the board, I would say for simplicity purposes, I think that it's fair to say that if it has anything to do with your theme and you're wondering is this OCD or not, and it's giving you anxiety, I would just chalk it up to OCD. Because it's, you know, I would say with 99.999% certainty it most likely is. Because if there is a real issue, you won't even worry about it being OCD. You know, you will just deal with the real issue. But it's when you think, is this OCD or not, that it's, you know, it is OCD. So I can tell you, in all my time helping people, you know, I've never seen a person say, is this OCD or not, and it turns out not to be. So it doesn't really happen. Next question, does it get worse for the first couple of days from ignoring the thoughts? Yes, it will get worse. And again, it's a mechanism of the brain. So the reason why it gets worse is because you are choosing not to react all of a sudden, and before you reacted all the time with fear. So your brain says, what's going on? What's happening? You've been reacting. What, you're not protecting yourself now? I gotta send you all kinds of crazy thoughts, right? All kinds of things. So it's gonna send you all kinds of thoughts. They're gonna get more and more intense. It's okay. Refuse reaction. You know, refuse reaction. You will see that it will start to improve. But this period of time, in the beginning, there's nothing really you can do about it. You just have to be very strong and know that it won't last forever. The important part also to mention that in the beginning, even though you're going to get more thoughts, the anxiety to each one of those thoughts is not going to be as strong because the brain is switching them, because you're not holding on to any of them. You know, so they're going to go too fast for them to really gain momentum and really gain anxiety. So the anxiety is going to be kind of the same, and it's going to continuously go down, but the number of thoughts will increase. So just be prepared for that. And if that's what's happening, that's actually a good thing, because it shows that the brain is uncomfortable and it needs to get out of that comfort zone of reassurance to recover. So that's the right track. If you feel like you have the same thought, it's not switching, there's no movement, you're just doing reassurance after reassurance after reassurance, that's bad. That means you're doing something wrong. You have to re-examine what you are doing. Are you avoiding? Are you analyzing? Most likely it's going to be analyzing, and start to really push on refusing. You know, it's with this stuff, you know, there's not an easy way out of this. There's not a way to reassure yourself out of this, to analyze your way out of this. You actually have to do the work. You have to push and push and push, and I promise you, if you do that, you will recover. But it's not going to be easy, and you have to be prepared from the beginning that it's not going to be an easy road. Next question is, what if my doubt is 50% or more, false memory, not sure if the situation happened or not? So, meaning like the person was saying that they're 50% not sure if it's a situation happened or not. And yeah, I think that, it can be any, in terms of like the person was saying, like, is it always only like, a few percent, like 1 or 2% doubt and you're pretty sure what's happening? I think it depends on the level of your anxiety. So if your anxiety is 10 out of 10 and you're now in a position of complete meltdown, you can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak, then yeah, it's very, very possible that you can have 50% or more that you're not even now sure what happened. You're just scared, you're analyzing. But as you get out out of that, then you'll get, yeah, it probably didn't happen. No, yeah, that's not even likely. And you'll get to that much lower percentage and then it's gone completely. But yeah, that's common. Next question is getting caught up in reacting when you get okay, so the person was asking about getting caught up in reacting when you get overconfident in recovery and how to handle it. So this comes a little bit later. When you are closer to recovery, you kind of get a little too confident, say, oh, nothing is gonna get me, I'm good. And how I define recovery is when you actually have a lot of time under your belt and nothing has happened, so 6 months at least, because then we have time. We know that, you've in the course of 6 months, you've been through the good times, through the bad times, stress has happened, all kinds of life situations, and OCD probably tried to come in and it didn't, and then it stopped, So now we have this kind of process, and then you can say that, oh, you know what, for the last 4 months I never even got a thought, so that's something, right? If you haven't had OCD in a week, that's not recovery. That tells us very little, right? We need more of a period of time to actually call it recovery. So in case of getting caught up, you got caught up, happens, and to an extent, right? Not to the same level, but to some extent, people who don't have OCD also sometimes get anxious, also sometimes get caught up with analyzing or whatever, So you got caught up, who cares? Push through. But, now you know that you're not really out of it yet, and be more cautious. Just pay more attention to where your thoughts are. If you find that your thoughts are in this anxiety, what if theme, then, just really kind of pay more attention to it so you can switch out of it. Next question is, I noticed one trick of OCD is to encourage you to do a compulsion and then to criticize and put you down for doing it. Do other people experience that as well? I would say so. A lot of the times the person, well, it's whenever you do a compulsion, a lot of the times the person will feel bad about doing it. But anytime you send a negative signal to your brain, like you're saying that, I've done something bad, not in terms of like bad, right? But in terms of like I didn't do the right thing to recover, you're still sending a negative message to the mind saying that something is wrong. And the more you say that something is wrong, the worse it gets, So because you're sending a signal that everything is not all right. Even though it's not really directly reassurance, it's still not good. So I would say, okay, whatever, got caught up, reacted, who cares, pushing through, Don't allow yourself to get into that negative frame of mind. Next question is, my main spike is that when me and my boyfriend live together, I will have the thoughts that something is wrong and what if I made a mistake and we will not be happy. Since we don't live together yet, how can I expose myself to this uncertainty? So whenever this thought comes in, that's the exposure. What you're doing with that thought is either it's a response prevention or it's not response prevention. So you have to prevent the response of fear. The thought coming in is exposure. You're preventing the response, preventing the reaction. So, okay, well, if I feel like that, I'll feel like that, I'm not reacting now. I'm choosing not to react now, even though I don't feel comfortable. Next question is, this is from a previous week as well. Can you talk about confession and past mistakes a little more? I'm not seeking reassurance. I just don't understand why this keeps coming back. This keeps coming back because you keep analyzing it. So the person says, for years I didn't think about this and my OCD triggers me to think of this now nonstop in detail. It gives you kind of a push to think about it nonstop. So basically saying to you, here's a situation, would you want to think about it? And you think about it, get into it, the anxiety rises, right? So you want to say, nope, not going to think about it. It tries to come from another direction. Oh, maybe it's like this. You want to think about it? Nope, not going to think about it. And you really have to be focused on where your thoughts are and say to yourself, this was fine for years. It's fine now. I'm not doing any more reassurance. I'm not doing it. It's one of those things that the more you pick at what I was saying in the beginning of the video, that the more you pick at this wound, the bigger it's gonna grow because you keep picking at it, it healed over the years, right? Then you started to pick at it again, and it got bad again, right? So it's now you have to pull back, and it's a choice. It's an uncomfortable choice that you're making, but you have to do it. So don't, in exactly what you're saying, I don't want to feed it anymore. Don't feed it anymore. Don't pick at it. Just let it be. Even though you feel uncomfortable, you will see that after a while you'll start to feel comfortable again. It will take a little bit of time to unplug now that it has been powered up so much. So no more questions, no more reassurance, no more checking, no more analyzing. I find with pure raw stuff, false memory being part of it, that it creates fear, and it's the analyzing is the biggest kind of outlet of that fear. And I know this is not really like a false memory because it's an actual situation that happened, but I'm just saying that it kind of is the same thing in the way, because it's reaction brings more stuff, brings more thoughts, brings more, so it's whatever happened in the past, it happened, you moved on, that's it, doesn't matter. Hi Ali, are second opinions absolutely necessary for diagnosis of OCD, or is trusting your primary doctor enough? I'm going to do a separate video on this topic because honestly guys, this topic drives me crazy. The letters I get and the stories I hear, pretty much by now I've heard doctors diagnose people who have OCD, and they clearly have OCD. It's one of the, like simplistic types of OCD, like a harm or false memory or religious, just something very obvious with very obvious symptoms, and they get diagnosed everything under the sun. I hear all kinds of stories. So I would say getting a second opinion is definitely a good idea, especially if if you go to a doctor. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, how much experience does this doctor have with OCD? Because a lot of the doctors, and not all of them, but a lot of them, still kind of subscribe to the idea that OCD is only when you're cleaning. So if that doctor thinks that way, they might say that you have, I don't know, whatever else, And if you feel like, no, I have OCD, what Ali describes on every show is exactly what I have, then yeah, get a second opinion. Don't just say, because they're a doctor, they must know about it. That's not how it works. If, say, for example, if you're a software engineer and and we ask, well, do you know C++? Do you know this? Do you know that? They don't know every single thing out there. They know specific things because those are the things that they deal with. Same thing with doctors, same thing with any other profession. It's not a magical profession being a doctor. They know what they see on a daily basis. OCD is not generally something that most doctors see on a daily basis. It's not as common as a lot of other mental situations are, so you have to really take that into account. Definitely, if your doctor seems to be knowledgeable, and if your doctor seems to be really understanding of concepts, I would say really a very simple test is, does your doctor not know what ERP is? Just the term. Do they know what ERP is? Does the doctor know what the term pure O means, right? If you do have pure O, I mean. Has your doctor ever heard of religious OCD? Has your doctor had, or whatever OCD, depending on the, I'm just kind of going from the questions I answered today, right? But, has your doctor even heard of these types of OCD? Don't be, I can tell you, because I had OCD and I've seen doctors, so I can tell you from my own personal experience, from the experiences of many clients, I've talked to, who just tell me, the strangest stories, of dealing with doctors. It's really use your judgment of how much this person in the white coat knows about what I am going through. And if you feel like, this person is very knowledgeable, then great. You got lucky, that means. Because I would say 80% of the time, they have very little idea, And if you feel like they don't know, second opinion is your best friend. Get a second opinion, yeah. But really, overall, no matter how many opinions you do get, really the reality is the same thing. You have to do ERP, you have to do exposures to recover, you have to stop the reaction, you have to stop compulsions, analyzing all of these things to recover. You know, you can get diagnosed from a million different doctors, it still won't prevent you from doing the work. So yes, you'll get that paper or that, you know, verbal kind of stamp that says, yes, you do have OCD. Great, now what? Now you actually have to do the work. So whether you get it or not, you're still in a position where you have to do the work to recover, and if you do, you will recover. And if your doctor tells you that no, you can't recover from OCD, then get a better doctor, because they can't help you recover, because they're telling you that I can't help you recover, you can't recover. So find somebody who says you can recover, or just do it on your own, you know? Next question is there any other exposure for harm OCD with having to do with knives and scissors? For example, if we avoid these sharp objects, what can we do? Self-explanatory. Stop avoiding sharp objects. So if the more you avoid, the more fear you connect to these situations. So, okay, you know what? Since I am such a murderer and I'm just going to kill everybody, I'm just going to sit with this knife for 15 minutes. And I can tell you, at first you're going to be so scared, and it's going to be, and then after a while you'll be like, I'm so bored, where's my phone, you know, let's get on social media, do something else, I'm bored, you know. It will start, the anxiety will start to fade. At first it's going to be really bad, but instead of avoiding, you have to do exposures towards it. Can OCD false memory include a feeling that in a situation in the past you were grabbed or touched in a specific body part of your body that never really happened? Yeah, the sensations can go either way, and yeah, that's a common thing as well. So you just have to disregard. Don't pay attention to it. It's like, you know, again, what I talk about every video. You're going down the corridor. Things are here telling you things. You're not listening. You're just keep going. Parallel to these things, not going towards them, just parallel. You know, you will see that they will start to fade. The anxiety is there, can't do anything about it right now because the anxiety is powered up from the past. So the only thing we can do is ignore it, and it will start to dissipate on its own because you're not giving it more energy, you're not powering it up. You know, if a person tells me, well, I'm doing reassurance all day and I don't know why I keep getting the thoughts. Well, it's kind of like saying, you know, I'm putting gas in the car, I don't know why it's running. Stop putting gas in the car, it will stop running. Next question is, how can you bring down the fear when you get a thought? Once it comes, the fear comes, how can I get that down and switch to power? The power and the fear coming in are two separate things. So you are choosing to come from a position of power. Your brain is automatically choosing to give you fear. There are things that they're going parallel. So you're still choosing to remain in the position of power even though the fear is coming in. To make it a little bit easier on yourself, I do suggest trying to refocus on something else. So for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to do this. I don't care if the thought is coming in. If you feel like it's impossible and the fear is just way too high, try to delay. So you're saying that, you know, for the next day, I'm not going to react, but I will examine the situation. I just won't examine it right now. You know, and that sometimes works very well. So it just depends on how strong your anxiety is and how much you're able to resist. But even if you have to do hour by hour, really refusing. And I would say, you know, not avoiding as much as possible. So on purpose saying, okay, I'm going to put myself in the situation on purpose. Or you're saying I can't do it. You're saying I'm scared, like to OCD, right? I'm going to do it on purpose, right? So really kind of pushing the boundary and standing up for yourself. Thinking of OCD as almost like a bully, right? You're standing up for yourself. And the last question for today is, what if I just falsely diagnosing myself, and what if I really did do something wrong? So, and again, in the situation, the person says, what if I really did cheat on the significant other? So, and again, this is such a common OCD. What if means it's OCD, you know? So it's a what if thought, it's OCD, I'm refusing reaction. So not buying into it, not listening. You don't have to explain to your brain that is sending these thoughts on autopilot, what it is. It won't understand that either. It doesn't understand the thought. It doesn't understand your explanation for the thought. But it understands that you're trying to justify, explain, analyze from a position of fear. Well, no, it didn't happen because that's fear. You want to say, forget it, I'm done. That's power. So always coming from a position of power, not buying into what ifs, going parallel to it. You'll see that it will start to lift, but the what ifs, the position of fear, is what fuels the situation in the first place. So right now it keeps going in your mind because you keep fueling it. So you have to say, no more, I'm not doing it. The fuel that you put in before is still going to be there for a little while, but it will run out, and then you will start to see it lift. You will start to feel better. So you got to give it some time, and during this time, just be very strict with yourself and not react. This was the last question. If you're interested in signing up for the recovery program, the information is on youhaveocd.com. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.